face. I'm here, Lisi Kashite, the chair. If everyone else would take turns and identify themselves.
The lawyer.
Jay
Go the lawyer.
Jackson.
Okay. George Alzabak.
Bill
Dave
Moore.
Collins.
Wendy Taylor.
Jennifer Hilton.
Okay.
Bill Bishop.
I know our lawyer, Travis DaCosta is here. William Moore, our building official, is here, and Sally Frere, our stenographer, is here, as well as Julie Barrett. Have I left anyone out?
Nope.
Okay. The first matter on the agenda is a petition that's been filed by BLF Properties requesting a special use permit at 3838 Main Road. The property is located in the Village Commercial Zoning District and is currently permitted for a specialty cheese shop. The applicant seeks a special use permit to add a single bedroom apartment on the second floor pursuant to Article 4, Section 2D of the zoning ordinance. I believe that Andy Tights is representing the petitioner. Mr. Tights, are you here? Hello?
He's coming in right now.
Hello.
Hello?
There you go. Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
I'm getting little messages that there are other members, people out there that I can't see that are here relative to this petition. So,
Yes, there are. I mean, there may be people in the audience, and I have a couple of witnesses. And obviously, we have to wait, since this is set up as a webinar, we have to wait for you to admit us. I don't know if you want to admit the rest of my group now or one at a time as we go forward.
well, I suppose it's a public hearing, so everybody should be here and able to listen to everybody. I don't know how to work this.
I think,
So I have no control over anything.
okay, Madam Chair, I think all of us can see and hear you. We could see and hear you before I was opened up. It's, I guess it's Andrew Rice who has the ability to admit someone to the webinar and they become a participant in the webinar. And then that gives them the ability to speak and you can see them. Otherwise, as a webinar, we just see and hear you. So
Yes.
I don't think you want to have everybody in, but you might want to have the people for this application in.
Well, it's, it's a public hearing, so anybody that wants to be here, I don't know. I can't see them. I don't know if anyone wants to be here or is here.
Well, Madam Chair, what I suggest you do, particularly when you're calling for public comment, is you ask them to raise their hand. If they're on the screen, that's what I did. I virtually raised my hand. I hit the button. If they're on a telephone, an old-fashioned telephone or even a cell phone, I believe it's *9 to raise their hand or *6. One of those is raising hand and one of those is mute, unmute for those people. So that's generally the way we do it. I guess I would ask Mr. Rice if he could admit Diana Botello and Melissa Hutchinson and Tom Principe and James Houle. Those are the people that I have. And
Yeah.
I'll ask all of them to please keep their mics on mute until we get to them.
I think I have everybody but James.
It looks like
Okay.
Jim's on. Jim is there.
I think he's there. I don't know what it's showing up as though.
It's Jim.
Again.
Poole.
So I'm texting him to find out if he's in. Do you have him already?
Well-
Yep, I see him there actually on
Yeah,
your list of
he-
participants. Okay, great.
Mr.
So
Would you like to make some preliminary remarks before you call your first witness?
I would if I might.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Andy Tights. T as in Thomas, EITZ. And I'm an attorney with offices at 2 William Street in Providence, Rhode Island. And I'm here representing the applicant, as you've heard. We're asking for very minor relief here. We're asking for a special use permit. The commercial use is permitted as of right with the cheese shop. And I'm sure many of you from driving by there have seen the addition that's been going up over the last few months. That is all fully permitted. That received both environmental review and design review by the planning board back in the spring, just before things closed down. So it's fully permitted. And the first floor of that addition is going to be an extension of the retail use. And the plan was to have eventual use of the second story. The building official, however, because of code issues, required that we designate it. It needs to be residential so that we don't, otherwise we would have to, if we're commercial, we'd have to put an elevator in. So it is residential, and the plan is to have an accessory dwelling unit there. Well, not accessory dwelling unit, a dwelling unit in there. Again, it meets all the code for the dwelling unit, and you'll hear about that as well. All it does not have yet is this special use permit from you to allow the occupancy as a dwelling unit. Everything else complies dimensionally. The parking, there is sufficient parking there. All we're asking for is just the use. I do want to note too, as I said, there's sufficient parking there. There's sufficient parking there for the commercial use and the parking spaces that are required for the dwelling unit. In addition to which, this property was recently acquired. Property was recently acquired from Roz Ware by my clients. And there is an existing easement. The property immediately to the south has an easement for 2 parking spaces. And there are those 2 extra parking spaces. And then there's actually 3 more parking spaces, which are above and beyond what we need. And I just want to note that our plan is, I think some of you may know, the library has been using this property for parking for many years. And it is our plan to continue that. There's no legal easement or lease, but it's still our plan to continue that, to provide the library people the opportunity to park there. And we have extra spaces as well. There aren't going to be designated spaces, library parking here, but we have more than are required. So we have 3 extra spaces. And we seem to be working out well as very good neighbors, and I'm sure we will in the future. Also, I do want to know that submitted into the record, you should have received, there were 5 letters from neighboring property owners. I don't know if you want me to reference them.
Received them, they're part of the record in the case.
Okay, all right. So we have support from 5 of the people, several of whom were in the abutting area, including the occupant immediately next door to us too. And in addition to which, you should have received a petition. It's just, I know a petition doesn't carry any weight, but just for your information, there's a 3.5 page, or a little over 3-page petition with people, most of whom are from Tiverton, although obviously some from all over. We do draw people from all over for the quality of the cheese there, and all in support of this as well. And that's part of the record.
That I don't see that. I don't see that. I know we did get several letters from people that were abutting owners that or lessees of property.
Okay.
In support.
Well, I believe that was sent on Friday. I'll let Mrs. Botello talk to you about that. She can refer to it. It's not competent evidence anyway, so it's not key, but I just wanted to make sure you knew. I also just wanted to refer, so we have a few witnesses here. Tom Principe is the engineer on this project. I wasn't planning on having him do any specific testifying, but I wanted you to know that he's here if you have any questions regarding the site plan or engineering or environmental things, even though that's already been dealt with the planning board, but he is available. And then I guess I would call as my first witness, Diana Botello.
Sally, would you swear the witness in, please?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is Andy Tights again. Diana, could you please tell us, first of all, just who is BLF Properties? Is that a major Boston real estate holding company?
No,
Or
it's
who is
actually,
that?
it's my mom and myself are partners. We opened it to purchase the building 3838 Main Road. And my husband and I own the business, the Cheese Wheel Incorporated, and we've been with other family members running that business. So it's just, and she's a Tiverton resident. We're actually kind of in a little compound. She lives right next door to me. We're a close family. I've lived in Tiverton all my life, born and raised here, and raising my, grown children. Pretty invested in the community, and intend to stay here for as long as I can foresee in the future anyway.
Oh, okay, and can you tell us a little bit about your plans for the expansion of the business?
Yep. We after we moved into the business, the Cheese Wheel, we were actually broken into shortly after we took over ownership of it. And Four Corners Grill was also broken into, and we started thinking about how we wanted to move forward. And with the addition, having a place upstairs that Bill and I can live for a period of time, be able to watch over the store and be even more invested into it. That's the direction that we'd like to go at this point.
Okay. You might in the future end up renting it out to someone else. Maybe someone who works at the store, or just a tenant in the future. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We'd like to keep our options open, but I am looking at it for the foreseeable future for the two of us, for sure.
Okay.
And it's our intention also to continue to be good neighbors. We enjoy having the library next door, and enjoy having more action in the parking lot. So, there's no problem on our end about sharing.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions of this witness. Does the board have any questions of
Yes,
Mrs. Botello?
I do. I noticed that a number of the letters from people that have written in support of the petition have spoken about the benefits of an owner-occupied business. And I believe Ms. Botello certainly attested to the fact that she intends to live there, and to heighten the security of her business, and that I appreciate. I think that I have concerns. I think that an owner-occupied business is a great idea and very preferable, but I'm concerned about the potential for that area becoming more of a residential section if it's not confined to an owner-occupied residence. So the question is there any way that we can, and I direct this question to both our attorney, Mr. DaCosta, and to you, Mr. Tights, is there any way that we could restrict the residency of that apartment to an owner or lessee occupied residence?
I'll go first, I guess.
Yeah.
This is Andy Tights. While it might be a condition you could impose, Madam Chair, I think it would be overly restrictive. And you'll hear from the expert testimony of Mr. Hool as well. But the fact, we don't have, this isn't a multi-family, it's not multiple apartments. It's not even like a multiple bedroom apartment that's going could possibly be rented to students or anything like that. It's a very small scale operation. And frankly, the problems today with COVID and retail. I mean, retail is always a tough business to begin with. It's even tougher now. And I don't think we can accept that restriction that it be owner occupied. I think we're trying to make that clear. We're not trying to fool anybody. It's the current intent, but we can't keep that as a permanent thing. We don't know what may happen. Sometimes people move in with in-laws when in-laws need care, and then you've got a vacant spot. There are all sorts of things that might come up. So we would really want to see it as available as a unit. And I think the scale of it is just one small apartment is not going to cause any harm to the Four Corners area, turn it into a
That's
residential
my
area.
concern. Having been a student at one time, I know how many people you can fit into a one-bedroom apartment. And I think that the reason that is zoned village commercial is to preserve that type of business.
Right. Well, I mean, I think you've got
Suggesting that a restriction would not be a legal restriction.
I'll leave that for your attorney to say. I'm simply saying that it's not something that we would willingly accept.
So I want to clear something up here. Can I say something? What
Sure.
is that we're not willingly accepted? This is a condition we ask and we could enforce on or not. I have the same concern about turning that area into every business. Somebody change ownership. And I know they're trying to sell a few of these businesses down in that area. And we're going to end up with an application in an apartment above the business, and the owner could live there for a month and say, I want to live there. I love the place. I go there a lot. I have a concern about that. I don't understand. I want to ask my attorney, our attorney. I don't understand he's willing to accept that restriction or not. What does that mean?
Right. It's a restriction that can be ordered by this board. Everything needs to kind of go through the perspective of our ordinance, where we are our zoning ordinance, where we have 6 kind of criteria that we need to find, findings of fact that we need to find. I don't know if you guys have it in front of you. Would it be helpful if I read this to you guys? Do you have it?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Could you speak up, Travis? I'm having a hard time hearing everything you're saying.
Sure. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, could you repeat what you just said, though? I didn't hear that.
Right. So on a surface level, yes, it is a restriction that can be ordered by this board. I think that there'd have to be findings of fact. However, pursuant to our ordinance, there are 6 particular criteria that we should be looking at, or this board should be looking at in whether or not it's going to grant the use permit, and any restrictions that it gives on it. Do you guys have those in front of you? And is it helpful for me to read that now?
The restrictions for a special use permit, the criteria for a special use permit?
Yeah, the elements that we would be looking at. Do we all have?
Familiar with those.
Right. So long as we're within those, we're following those particular guidelines, and if that's a restriction that this board finds, then yes, you could do it, but it would have to be pursuant to one of those 6 elements.
Well, does the community comprehensive community plan address this issue? I mean, that's one of the criteria that we have to consider.
Madam Chair, this is Andy Tights, if I may.
This was directed to our attorney, Mr.
Okay, sure.
So certainly, I think that answering that question would depend on what is the surrounding properties. I think that, around that property right now, is it primarily commercial?
Yeah.
Are there any properties that are similar to what is being requested right now?
All I know is, and I only know this from the letters that were submitted. There was a letter from one person that indicated she was living in the building and she had a store on the premises. So that to me would indicate that there is someone else that might not, I mean, I don't know the circumstances of how she's living there or how she's living there, but if it's limited to a commercial village property, it shouldn't have a multiple purpose unless it pre-existed the zoning.
Well, we know that a special use permit can be granted for residential here in a VC area. So if it were to be granted, it would be within the comprehensive plan.
I don't know the circumstances of the previous person that's living there, but everything else I know is commercial there.
We granted the special use permit for that, Lisi.
We did. Okay. Is that something I don't recall? Was that,
Yep.
I don't know if that predated me or,
It's been
what?
a while.
uh-huh. Well, if we granted it, then it's illegal, obviously it's legal. I wasn't aware of, personally aware of that one petition.
I honestly don't, really doesn't matter what was done in the past. We have concern that we'll turn into another place that we're gonna end up with applicant after applicant asking for the same thing. And it will be no longer village commercial. It will be just placed like every other place. The beauty of that area is what it is. My question is, even if we could put that restriction, there's no way we could enforce it. Like, how do we know who's living there 3 years from now? So we're asking for a restriction, who's gonna enforce it? It's literally, and there's no way we can enforce it. They could move up 6 months from now and we don't even know who's living there. The question is gonna be either we allow them to have an apartment or we don't allow it.
Mr. Tights, would you like to add anything to the question that I posed to our attorney about the comprehensive plan?
Well, Madam Chair, I guess what I'd just like to do is if I could put on a bit more of my case. I think this is maybe a little premature. Mr. Hool could address some of your questions about the zoning, the standards, and the comp plan. And Ms. Hutchinson could show you the layout of the apartment, and we might come back to it a little bit later. That was going to be my suggestion.
Well, I think that I have a concern about this and Mr. Altabek has a concern about it. And I'd sort of like to know what your legal opinion is in terms of the parameters of
My legal opinion is actually the same as your solicitors. You have the ability to impose this restriction if you can, in fact, make the appropriate findings of fact that there is, that there with this type of housing, that there's some difference between the owner occupied and whatnot versus the non-owner occupied housing. I mean, this is village commercial. The whole arc of the zoning in Tiverton is going in the opposite direction. Think of all the stuff that you've seen with the rezoning, with the form-based code, with Main Road and so forth, to go to mixed use where you had all commercial. And here you're in a historic area, village commercial, where this is in fact part of the historic pattern, that there were several of the buildings that are just all resident, that are all offices now, such as Mr. Humphreys, were all homes originally. And it was a mixture of homes and villages. And that's what the village idea is. And in fact, that's what the town of Tiverton in its comp plan is trying to get back to. I understand there's a concern here. Four Corners is a very small, fragile place. So there's a concern. This should be reviewed by the board as a special permit. You don't want to see multiple unit buildings and large buildings. And that's why we already had to go through the design review with the planning board, make sure it was in keeping with the historic character and all the fragile environmental stuff. But I think the fact that it is allowed as a special use permit indicates an intent not to put such a strict view as you're imposing on it.
Why don't you proceed? Anybody else have any questions for Mrs. Botello before we?
I would like to add that my husband and I have lived in our current residence for about 15 years and the residence before that for 10. We are committed to maintaining the integrity of the village commercial. We find it quaint. I love my town, and I am very much invested in doing the best that I personally can as just a resident, but also as a business owner, in keeping that integrity. I hope that my intention is clear.
Absolutely. And I don't question anything about what you're saying or your sincerity in saying it.
Thank you.
I certainly believe that. I think our concern is that if this is extended to allow more and more residential use, that the character of that area will change. And that's the concern. It's a concern I have. I can't speak for anybody else.
And allow me to say, I believe every word you're saying, and I trust me,
Thank
you guys
you.
are doing a great job, and I appreciate you
Thank
buying it.
you.
I've gone there before you guys, and also it's nothing against you personally. Please understand that. Same as Lisi said, that's literally my concern in the future.
Or if you end up selling your business, you know, if the horse let
I'm
out of.
sorry, we're invested in it. I have no intentions of selling this business I've got my kids there, my daughter-in-law there. I've got a family investment in this. I don't know how else to say. I'm very invested in this. I have no intentions of going anywhere. If anybody is going to be committed, I can assure you it's myself and my family.
Thank you. Would you like to call your next witness, Mr. Tights?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to call Melissa Hutchinson.
Hello.
And
Do I need to be sworn in or do you want me to jump right in?
yeah, we're going to ask to have you sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. And I think I had talked about this with Julie before, but if we could allow Melissa to screen share so she could put the plans on the screen for everybody to see.
As long as it doesn't involve me doing anything.
No, I think, there we go. Okay.
So I'll just walk, I believe you have a copy of these
Wait a minute.
drawings. Sorry.
But Melissa, sorry, no, but just before you go, just if you, could you just tell us just your background, your credentials, et cetera, quickly?
Sure.
You...
My name is Melissa Hutchinson. I own a small practice here in North Tiverton called MH Architect LLC. I've been registered in the state of Rhode Island for 15 years. I'm also a professor of architecture at Roger Williams University for the past 11 years. And I've been working with the Botellos on the addition project.
Okay. And before you get started, Madam Chair, if I could ask the board to accept Melissa Hutchinson as an expert in architecture.
Anybody have any objection to that? Any member of the board have any objection?
Negative.
No objections.
Okay.
Got two
Thanks.
answers. I haven't heard anybody but two, and I have no objection. But we need two more audible answers.
I have
No objection.
We've accepted her before.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Now, Melissa, could you please just take the board just quickly through the plans?
Sure. I just wanted to start with a cross section through the building so that you can see how we have retail space on the first floor and then a residential space on the second floor with a small deck. We worked actually very hard to keep the height of this building no higher than the existing building. So the unit upstairs has, lower ceiling heights, and we're really trying to work within the eaves to create a space up there. It's really quite a small unit. This is a floor plan of the unit. You can see that it has just one bedroom, a small living room that's open to a kitchen and a small office space, which overlooks the parking area for the security aspect. We have a rear entry from the back of the building up to that second floor. And then there's a second means of egress for fire safety out to a small deck and then down to the side of the building, which is adjacent to the library. The unit itself is just one bedroom. It's 886 square feet. It just has that one bathroom as well.
Is it 886 feet for the entire residence?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And then just to give you some reference, this right-hand side of the building, this is the elevation, the west elevation facing Main Road. So you can see on the right-hand side is the existing store, and then our addition is to the left-hand side. So this deck is the deck I just referenced that has a staircase for that second means of egress. And you can see how the addition's essentially the same height as the existing building. This is the side of the building that's facing the library with the deck and the stairs. Essentially, this whole side of the building, this lower level attached to the retail is the coolers or storage space. This is the rear of the building with the proposed addition on the right. And then this is the opposite side. So you'll see the new entrance to the residential unit is from the back parking lot up the stairs. So we feel that the building is very much, the addition is very much in keeping with the small scale nature of the existing building. And like I said, the roof height is quite low, and we're really, that unit upstairs is quite small, quite small ceiling height, essentially taking best advantage of that space underneath the roof eaves.
Melissa, can I just ask you to go back to the floor plan layout again? And my question to you is, would it be easy to add a second bedroom here anywhere? According to this layout, with the living room going right through to the bedroom, would it be easy to put a second bedroom in here?
It would not. With an 886 square foot, there's really no other space to put a bedroom. We have this very small kind of office nook, but that really, that would make for a bedroom that was 8 feet by 7 feet, which really is not even enough room to put a bed.
Okay. Thank you. The other thing, could you just talk a little bit about your work in designing this to fit into the historic character of the Four Corners area?
So from the initial inception of the project, we worked closely hand in hand with Roz Weir, and we showed her preliminary drawings of the massing and elevation to make sure she essentially was kind of on board in handing this building off and making sure that it preserved the character of the cheese wheel and the Four Corners. So essentially we are replicating the siding, the detail of the trim. The roof shingles will all match. The trim color will match. So we feel that the very small scale and the broken up massing really helps to keep this quaint and in character and in keeping with the existing building and the other surrounding buildings in Tiverton Four Corners.
Thank you. I have no further questions of this witness at this time.
Any member of the board have any questions of Ms. Hutchinson?
No.
Any member of the public have any questions if you're out there? Hearing nothing, thank you.
Should I call my next witness?
Sure.
Thank you. I'd like to call James Houle.
Sally?
Yep. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, and Madam Chair, I do believe that you have Mr. Houle's curriculum vitae was distributed by Julie last week. Is that correct?
It wasn't in the original package that I received. Let me see if it's in the,
It was recently emailed out to us, Lisi.
I
Oh,
think
was that-
was emailed to us.
okay, fine, if everybody else is seeing it. When did we receive this?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see it. Mr. Tights, why don't you put the salient portions of this resume on the record while I look for it?
Okay, sure, or I could also, okay. If need be, I can screen share it if I have to. But Mr. Houle, so I'll ask you, could you could you just tell us a little bit about your experience and credentials?
Sure. I've been active in the real estate industry in Rhode Island since September 1973.
Excuse me, a little bit louder, please.
Sorry?
A little bit louder, either a little closer or a little bit louder.
Sorry. I've been involved in the real estate industry in Rhode Island since 1973 when I was first licensed as a real estate broker. I began doing appraisal work in the 80s, and then when licensing for appraisers came, I became licensed an appraiser and have been active ever since.
Mr. Tyson,
primarily.
I'm sorry, except for interrupting. I did receive it and I reviewed it.
Okay.
I didn't
Okay.
cut you off, Hull, but does anyone have any problem with Mr. Hull testifying
No.
as an expert?
Nope.
He's accepted as an expert in what, at real estate appraisal? Is that what
Yes.
you're asking for?
Yes,
land
in
use.
real estate sales and land use and appraisal.
Okay, so ordered.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so Mr. Hool, you are familiar with the application which is before the board tonight?
I am indeed.
All right, so could you just tell the
Certainly.
board, summarize what your investigation of it and your expert opinions with regard to the standards for the special use permit?
Certainly. I was engaged by Mr. Tights to look at the property or to look at the petition, and which I did. I reviewed the petition, I reviewed the plans, I visited the site, I went through the zoning code where applicable, the comprehensive community plan where it is applicable, and I formed my opinion that I frankly find that it is, the proposal is very much in conformance with the overall requirements of the zoning code for this type of a use. The petition is to add, you've heard, it's to add a second unit, or not a second unit, it's to add a unit to the second floor of the building that is currently being constructed. When I look at the zoning code, I find that in the VR zone, a mixed use is permitted. It's a legal use. It does require a special use permit. And so I reviewed the criteria for the special use permit because there is no other zoning issue. This thing is totally in conformance in terms of the lot size, the setbacks, every other piece of it, the height, every other bit of the petition is actually well thought out, and it's very much in conformance. So I looked specifically at the criteria that are necessary for the special use permit. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to go through them. The first is that the public use and the public convenience and welfare will be served. I find that it'll actually be enhanced. My experience in this type of petition is that when there is an expansion and it's more in conformance with the neighborhood than the existing building had been, that it actually generates a very positive impact to the neighborhood. You've heard the testimony that there's a certain element of safety involved. I think that's very valid. If you're putting somebody living on site, they're not only going to be watching this building, but they're going to be watching for activity throughout the neighborhood. And people certainly have a very strong tendency to do that. So I do find that the public convenience and welfare would be served. It will not be detrimental. The second issue is it will not be detrimental to public health, safety, morals, or welfare. There's nothing that I find that would be detrimental to public health, safety, morals, or welfare. There's no real negative impact at all in my experience looking at what their proposed use is. Number 3 is it will be compatible with neighboring uses, and it will not adversely affect the general character of the area. It certainly will be. I've testified already that the design is much more in keeping with a lot of the other buildings that are in the four corners than it was originally. When this was originally constructed, it was just a garage, and it was only constructed a couple of, I think about 20 years ago. So this greatly enhances the actual building that's on site. So I find that it's actually enhancing the general character of the neighborhood. I did appraisals on every one of the properties that are owned by Roz Weir for her a few years ago. So I've actually viewed every one of the properties, and I've been through all of them. And I know that the property at 3842, which is the building right next door, has a residential unit on the second floor. It has retail space on the first floor and a residential space on the second floor. In the past, the Provender has had residential units. I don't know if they still do, to be honest, since it's transferred, but in the past it had. So it's not an uncommon use in the neighborhood, and I actually do think that it's a positive use. The 4 is it will not create a nuisance in the neighborhood, nor hinder or engender or endanger vehicular or pedestrian movement. There's nothing to indicate. There's ample parking, that it is a small one-bedroom unit. Typically you would expect to see no more than 2 cars. And the traffic will not be any kind of an issue at all. It will not significantly increase traffic. So I don't see that as any kind of an issue. Number 5 is it will have adequate provision made for water service, sanitary sewage disposal, and fire protection. I believe all of this was addressed by the engineer in the original planning department, and it was found to be very satisfactory. So I don't believe that there's any type of an issue with any of the criteria that are on number 5. I feel it's very much in conformance. Number 6 is it will be compatible with the comprehensive community plan of the town. I did look quite a bit at the comprehensive community plan, and I found that really there is a lot of discussion about the 4 corners. And I really believe that when you look at some of the issues, the original, as I talked, this was originally just like a garage barn, and it'll be significantly enhanced. It's much more in line with what the community plan has outlined for uses in the 4 Corners district. And I might add that really, I think the idea of allowing a mixed residential use in the district, I think somebody actually had the foresight to think that that may be a positive use in the neighborhood. It has to be accompanied by the commercial use first. And you have the right as the board to hear every petition for a special use. In other words, right at the moment, you can't just automatically put any kind of a residential use in a VR zone. You have to have a commercial use first, and then the person has to come to the board. And the board has the opportunity each time to review whether what the request is detrimental to the neighborhood. And I think that that prevents somebody coming in and just putting an apartment complex there or putting multiple units. It allows you the opportunity to have a say in how many units and how big they are and that type of thing every time that you're there, because they do have to answer each of these questions. So I do think that when you look at the comprehensive community plan, all the items they talk about, visual quality of the 4 corners, the uses in the 4 corners, this really is very much in exactly what the comp plan and the zoning code have outlined for uses in the Four Corners district. So I find that there really was nothing that was a negative factor that I could find. I found that it really was very much in conformance, and I thought would be very positive to the Four Corners.
Mr. Hool, I have a question as to the fifth criteria. What's the source of water? I don't think that there's public water or sewage there.
No, they have a well. In fact, that was one of the things that I looked at some of my previous appraisals. Their well is adequate enough that I think they actually supply one of the neighbors with water from their well. So I don't believe there's any type of an issue with the well water. The septic, of course, will have to be, I'm assuming, will be expanded. You can ask, the engineer might be a better person to ask, but the septic is going to be expanded because you're now introducing greater density use than was there before.
Next question.
George.
Hi. You done, Lisa?
Yeah, go ahead, George.
So you said the comprehensive plan, and as you pointed out that this was a garage at one time, and actually I was in Tiverton on Main Road when this thing was built. And I understand what you explained to us that the comprehensive plan had took into consideration of these kind of businesses or transform these kind of businesses or these property to these kind of businesses. That Four Corners has changed a lot in the last 25 years. But I don't think the comprehensive plan ever says or spelled out or said it will enhance it to put above a garage that we're going to make it nicer looking business. Let's put an apartment above it.
Well, George, on Action 8 in the quality on the comp plan, it states that they design standards to assist developers. Action 10 is to continue to identify natural scenic vistas, but they talk about mixed use, specifically on Action 8, it says to assist developers in adopting architectural designs for new commercial and mixed use development compatible with the town's historic and rural character. A great number of things make Tiverton a wonderful place to see, including beautiful landscapes, old buildings, and attractive newer developments. There should be aesthetic standards for commercial to encourage the creation of safe, attractive, and efficient centers rather than unsightly strips. And I think this is exactly what they're doing here. This is, a new commercial and mixed-use development compatible with the town's historic and rural character. And I think that they outline it directly in the visual quality Action 8 in the comp plan. It's on page 32.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Hool? Does any member of the public, if you're out there, have any questions for Mr. Hool?
Lisa, can I ask one quick question?
Of course.
Mr. Hool, is it your testimony, and I need clarification for myself, is it your testimony that the permit would not run with the land?
I'm so sorry, I missed your question.
Is it your testimony that the special use permit would not run with the land so as to be transferred to successors? Was that what you were saying?
No, I didn't.
Oh, because you made it seem like new people would have to come back and.
No, my point, that's very good. I'm glad you're clarifying that. My point was that there had been discussion early on in this hearing that this may be opening the floodgates for a lot of other properties to come in and have that kind of request. And what I'm saying is that I think there was foresight on the part of the people drafting the zoning code that they require that each time somebody wants to bring this type of a use forward, that they have to come back to you.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Madam Chair, may I just ask one more question to Mr. Hool?
Yes.
Yes, this is Andy Tights. Mr. Hool, could you specifically address the question of the owner occupancy versus non-owner occupancy in your opinion, whether you think that would make a difference in this circumstance. And you've heard the expert testimony of Ms. Hutchinson and as well. Could you opine to that, please?
Well, I think that sometimes you have to be somewhat logical in viewing this. And if the businesses in the four corners are virtually all owner users, whoever is there is running her business directly from the storefront. And the idea of having, if you're the owner living there, of course, is a great benefit because they're certainly going to put more energy into maintaining all the small things that go along with operating a business, and they're going to be available at all times. But if they were to rent it out, the last thing that anybody would want to do is put a really bad tenant directly above their business. I think that they would be very, very cautious in who they're going to allow to live upstairs. And I think that, I don't think in the long run, I think you have to take that into consideration. In the long run, I don't think it would make any difference whether it was the owner or an outside party who was leasing the property.
Thank you very much. I have nothing further, Mr. Hool, at this time.
Anyone else have any other questions? Hearing nothing. I think I'd like to hear something about septic and water and what the plans are for
Sure.
any updated septic system. I know from past hearings that there was discussion of a shared septic and shared wells, and I don't know quite how this is impacting that.
Yep, no, I'm happy to do that. If we could make sure if Mr. Principe could unmute himself and put his video on. I believe I saw him on the list. And then we could have him sworn in and I'll have him answer those questions.
I'm here, Madam Chair. Tom Principe, Principe Engineering Company.
Okay, if you could swear him, he could be sworn in, please.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Mr. Principe, just before you start answering the questions, could you just tell the board a little bit about yourself and your experience and credentials?
Yes, I'm a Rhode Island registered professional engineer. I own a small civil engineering firm here in the town of Tiverton. I've been concentrating on civil land development projects for just about 20 years now.
And I would ask the board to accept Mr. Principe as an expert in civil engineering.
Mr. Principe, have you testified as an expert before our board before?
Yes, I have, Madam Chair. Yes.
I don't have any objection. Does anyone have any objection?
No.
You're so qualified.
Thank you. So, Mr. Principe, could you answer the question? Tell them a little bit about what's going on with the well and the sewer.
Sure. Well, again, the well, as we know, there's a public well there that's shared amongst multiple businesses. So currently, right now, there was no change in the actual service connection prior to this project. The service for the potable water comes out of the rear portion of the building itself. That remains undisturbed. No plans to touch that. As far as the on-site wastewater treatment system, that has recently been upgraded over the last, I believe, 7 months to an advanced treatment system with a bottomless sand filter distribution field that's over to the south portion of the property.
So, Mr. Principe,
DEM permits for that?
Yes, DEM permits were in hand. Yes. Yep.
Actually, Mr. Principe, that was the question I was going to ask you too. The permits were obtained, and therefore the sewage disposal system on site there meets all the needs for the anticipated use, including the dwelling unit. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was designed to accommodate the future expansion. Yes.
And I know it's not really before the board's jurisdiction at this time, but as long as you're testifying, you want to just briefly confirm about the drainage concerns and what was done, and that those have all been approved as well by DEM in the town.
Yeah, again, as previously stated, Madam Chair, we went before planning for an ERS and site plan review. So it was reviewed by Steer Engineering, which is the town's engineer consultant, and also went to the Department of Environmental Management regarding the drainage as well. We had a meeting with myself, Steer Engineering, and the DEM regarding this project prior to construction. And they reviewed all of the drainage requirements and also the flagged wetlands, which is on the easterly side, rear portion of the site. It's off the property, but we are in compliance with all the construction activities that are taking place currently. There is a existing drainage swale to the north of this property, which is noted on the site plans that should be in the package. That existing drainage swale is going to remain undisturbed at this time with the proposed grading and the structure. We've proposed a bioretention rain garden to go along the rear portion of the property, which is accommodating not only the additional runoff, roof runoff for the addition, but we're further mitigating that runoff by also collecting the existing roof area for the building as well. So we're further mitigating the overall runoff rate off-site.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions of Mr. Principe, but the board might.
I don't. Anyone on the board have any questions? Hearing nothing. Anyone in the audience that I can't see or hear have any questions? Well, if you're out there, I wouldn't know it if you were, but thank you. I have nothing else.
Madam Chair, this is Andy Tice again. I just would say I think if anybody had any questions or whatnot, they could raise their virtual hand, and hopefully at that time Andrew Rice would let you know that someone was out there with a question or a comment. And you may still want that, not just with questions, but general comments. At this point, I have nothing further. If I could just reserve 2 minutes for closing and rebuttal.
Sure, go ahead.
Please see, you see someone's hand up?
I don't see anybody's hand other than mine.
Gail Lawrence?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Okay, I am Gail Lawrence, and I am the president of the Union Public Library Association. And because I speak on behalf of all of the association board members, directors, and members, I have prepared a statement to read. Given the information I've heard so far, some of it may seem redundant or perhaps unnecessary, but in the interest of time and also conforming to what I know the other board members have agreed to, I would like to do that now.
Go ahead.
So do you need me to swear?
Well, if you're making comment, no. If you're
I'm not an official, yes, I'm not a witness.
okay. Well, if you're simply just making comment on it, I don't think we need to swear you in. Is that correct, Mr. DaCosta?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. So I'm going to read this. The Union Public Library, as you know, is located at 3832 Main Road and is the neighbor directly to the north of the Cheese Wheel Village Market. The library has actually been at that location since 1896, which you may or may not know that. And we are celebrating our bicentennial this year. The library began in Four Corners in 1820 and is the second oldest library in Newport County. As a representative of the Library Association, I speak for the board, the directors, and all the members when I state that we wish to continue our very long tradition of being good neighbors and active participants in the Four Corners neighborhood and community. That's our goal. Our primary concern when the property changed hands and became the Cheese Wheel was, would there be negative impacts on the public's ability to safely use the library as it had been its custom for decades? And Mr. Tights referred to this. It is truly a landlocked parcel. So it is of necessity that we have depended upon the goodwill of the property owners at 3838 Main Road for parking, and have had unlimited parking there since the 90s, or maybe before that. Someone mentioned to me that probably people came there in horses at some point, but I can't confirm that. Since it is a matter of safe, continued access and public safety generally, and that speaks to what Mr. Hool was saying about the welfare of the community, we have to make a provision for parking a priority. In continued pursuit of that, we did have conversations with Bill and Diana Botello, and we understand both from those conversations and also from the expressions of Mr. Tights this evening and Diana this evening, that that is their intention as well. And everyone assumes that I'm correct in stating that they will provide 3 unspecified parking spaces for the use by library patrons. And that at some point they said that the library parking sign would remain in place. And I think that that would be important if that can in fact happen. It is a matter of safe, continued access and public safety generally that we have had to make this a priority. Hang on a second. And hearing what Ms. Botello has said today and hearing what Mr. Tights has explained, it is a huge relief. And for all of us who use the library, especially the families with young children, the people who are elderly, and believe it or not, there are many elderly library users and people who have mobility issues. So we do appreciate the Botello's expressed willingness to be supportive of the important service to our community provided by the Historic Library, and provision for some safe and convenient access for library visitors is of course vital to our success and our viability. Without it, we can't survive. So we want to publicly thank them for stating that they will do this and that it's going on the record that that is their full intention, and we can't even express our appreciation. While we recognize that this review is related to the special use permit to establish a residence on the 2nd floor, we of course had to focus on parking. But we do also want to acknowledge the fact that perhaps a residential use, and I don't have a lot of information about all the zoning reasons not to do that, or the inclination of members who don't wish to see that, we think it would provide additional security in the area. And that would be beneficial to all. Last year, in the winter months, someone tried to break into the library. So we are aware of some of those issues. Another concern that was raised at the Planning Board's environmental review is regarding anticipated impacts on the drainage from 3838 onto the library land, which is lower in elevation. And I trust, based on pronounce your name, the engineer's name. I'm sorry, I'm losing it. I don't have Principe, sorry, sir. We trust the environmental review addressed that concern fully, and the various efforts in place to mitigate unwanted drainage and flooding onto the library property will really prevent that problem. The topography makes that a challenge because Main Road does drain, and when we have rain, heavy rain, a substantial flow of water comes off the road into the parking lot of 3838 and also through that culvert. A couple of years ago, there was a delta that formed, like a small delta of floodwater. And because we're lower, we have to hope that the swale is adequate to carry that runoff. I guess again, I think we very much believe that by having regular communications with Bill and Diana Botello, between the library board and the Botellos, that we will have a mutually beneficial and neighborly relationship. And we do want to thank them for their support of the needs of the library. And I think that it's really genuinely is a service to the community for them to agree to provide parking and to be supportive of us. And we will in turn be supportive of them. We have always supported the businesses in Four Corners. And, you know, it's great public relations to have the library and all their friends, your friends. So I do appreciate the time you're giving me to share these thoughts. And we wish them very great success and hope their business does prosper and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to address us. I think you made some excellent points. And in terms of public safety and access and good neighbors and PR. And I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Thank you very much, Gail.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Mr. Tights, I had a question for you.
Yes, go ahead.
In our package, we received a memorandum of agreement regarding the 3 undesignated parking spaces that would go along with the 2 that are already, I understand, as part of an easement. What is the legal effect of the memorandum of agreement? Is that being recorded?
No, Madam Chair. We have agreed among ourselves to continue with the unwritten, unrecorded agreement that we have. As I have said on the record at the planning board, and I said again today, that we made sure when we were laying out the parking spaces that we had enough so that you could look and see we meet all the parking plus have 3 extra. And it's our intention to put that sign up there that says library parking. And in fact, that's the point. We're trying not to be so specific. We don't want to say there's 3 cars here, and when the 4th person comes to the library, they get turned away or towed. No, it's not like that. It's an informal agreement, and it is our intent, I think, as you heard from both sides, to keep it that way. If they're having an event and they're having 20 people, presumably they talk to us, and we wouldn't want them to have their event with 20 people on a Saturday afternoon and use our parking. That would be a problem. If they have it on a Tuesday night or something like that, as long as we can work together, I think that's our intent, to be flexible and supportive. But that it's not going to be a recorded or executed agreement. That was simply provided by the library.
Okay. Anyone else want to be heard? And whether questions of Mr. Tights or Ms. Lawrence, I see you've got your hand raised.
Just to reaffirm what Mr. Tights said, because of our landlocked situation and the fact that we have had this precarious situation with parking at times, we were attempting to formalize it in some way. But in retrospect, we all agreed that given the goodwill and neighborly spirit of both parties, that seemed to be a reasonable approach and a safe, secure thing for the library board to agree to, because we all have it in the best interest to have everyone be safe.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Mr.
Sure.
Tights, would you like to conclude?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I really don't have too much to say here. I think we've provided sufficient competent expert testimony to support the granting of the special use permit. And I guess just 2 things. One, the concerns about the drainage with the library, I think you've already heard from Mr. Principe that we're actually reducing the overall drainage by picking up more the existing roof drainage in the bioretention. And that has been fully vetted both by the town's peer review engineer, and there was a meeting with Mr. Principe and the town's engineer at DEM just to confirm all that. So, can we stop all of the existing drainage? No. Can we make sure that it's not worse? Yes. Can we make sure that it's even better? Yes, that's what we've done. And then the final issue is the concern that you and Mr. Elzabeth raised at the beginning about the owner occupied. And I certainly understand your concern. And I guess I just like to reiterate, and I think actually Mr. Hool summed it up, the fact the business is owner occupied. It's not like a whole batch of residences and some homes are owner occupied or not. It's not like a row of tenement houses. The business is an owner occupied business. The owners of the business run the business themselves. They're not absentee owners of the business. And they're already there with that concern. And in these challenging times for retail business and whatnot, it really would be onerous on them to put the additional restriction that they had to live there as well. To make that as a condition that runs with the land and the use. We don't know what happens in the future with life changes and whatnot. And so I would really request that you not put that condition of the owner occupancy for the apartment on it.
Okay, thank
Thank you.
you. We're now going to deliberate. There'll be no further input from the public or from the applicant. Who would like to start the discussion about, David, please, what are your thoughts?
I'm in favor of the project. I'm not in a butter, but I'm pretty close. I live in Tiverton Four Corners, and I've seen what goes on in the various stores. There is a store that has an apartment above it, and frankly, you'd never know anybody lived there. And I don't think we're ever going to know that people live above this cheese store. We've heard testimony from an expert that the public convenience and welfare will be served by this project, and I agree with him. And we've heard several people address the issue of security. I think that's going to help in the neighborhood as well. We've heard that from an expert testimony that project will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, morals, or welfare. And I agree with what I heard there. We've heard that it will not, from expert witnesses, that it will be compatible with neighboring uses and will not adversely affect the general character of the area. Neighboring uses are the same use as this proposed use. And I agree that there isn't going to be any impact. I can't see any way that this could create a nuisance to the neighborhood or hinder or endanger vehicle or pedestrian movement. It seems to me that any access to this building is going to be most likely from the back. People won't be seeing anybody go in or out. So, and there's no way that the fact that people are going in and out is going to affect the vehicular or pedestrian movement. We've heard testimony that water service, sanitary, sewer disposal, and fire protection are adequate. And we've had testimony on the compatibility with the comprehensive community plan, and that I agree with all of that. So I think the petition should be granted.
Wendy, you're not in the Hollywood Squares box. Well, how do you feel, Wendy?
I've got to say, I agree with your initial comments as well as George's. I think both of your concerns were well stated, and I think that they are really valid. I am concerned about this being a slippery slope. I was never under the impression that historical Four Corners was meant to really have any other purpose than a commercial use. I didn't read the comprehensive community plan necessarily the same way that someone testified. I didn't see that there was a specific outline for livable space as one of the uses for historical Four Corners. So I am concerned with that. And I guess in reading through all of the information that, what needs to be met in order to have this permit granted, I don't think I'm where David is on being able to say, like, I really see that the public welfare is served. I can't necessarily, say that is apparent to me. I also think that there's the chance of somebody moving in there, and I know everyone's talking about it, there's just too many unknowns, I think, is what a big concern is that I have. Someone moving in there, maybe they're the greatest tenant in the world, maybe they do protect the library, or maybe they're just a nuisance to a very quiet and very pleasant historical Four Corners. And when businesses shut down there, they shut down. But if every business there eventually, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now is having these rental apartments on top of them, then we've got neighbors coming to complain to us that there's too much noise and there are too many parties. I have an Airbnb next to my house, and I have an 8-acre property. And I don't even know if the town knows that that's an official Airbnb, but my God, they drive me crazy. everybody comes in, there's a bunch of strangers, they're partying, they're making noise, they go to all hours of the night. I live in a really, really quiet part of Tiverton. It's not quiet when the weekends come and the Airbnbers come next door. I feel it's our duty to also somewhat protect historical Four Corners and not just say that because some people came before this board and made arguments where they can fit a square peg into a round hole and they can use the right words to say that we meet the comprehensive community plan and that all of the requirements of the special use permit are subjectively met, that we should feel forced to take an action that at least 3 of us have a concern with. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Jay?
Yeah, I'm for this project. It says right there, village commercial. So when I think of a village, I think of people living around a particular parcel of land, a particular area. And this particular area also has some commercial value. I see this as, this is the way the town used to be, right? The guy that owns the penny candy store lived above it. And these people are just following traditions that I see around town. I mean, I've seen in the past. And we look at our code, they've met all the 6 conditions that have been required of them to get a special use permit. This is not a variance. This is a special use permit. If somebody else comes in, they have to come before us. We can then make a decision on them. But for this particular project, I'm in favor of this.
Thanks. George?
I obviously like the location. I love what they're doing. I am totally stick with my point that the fact is I appreciate Mr. Tice in his closing saying that the absentee owner, the new owner, Diana, her husband, bought from an absentee owner, and they could sell it tomorrow to an absentee owner who will just rent it. And the people next door, we keep pointing out there's someone next door living in a business above. And Mr. Tice said they own that business. They rent that business. They don't own the building. They rent the apartment. Again, we're going into my problem with this whole area over there as we go through the town and every time we have these meetings. I find it hard to say, yes, it's okay for this, but when the next person comes in who buy the building next door, I say to them, no, you can't do it. Well, wait a minute, why I cannot do it? We're in court now because we're doing it for everybody. I know we don't set precedent, and that's not what we hear about. Again, I disagree with Jay. It is a village commercial, not stating that people should be living above their businesses. This is not the 50s or the 60s. I appreciate they're saying they're going to live above their businesses, but they could get an offer 5 years from now and they're gone. And we don't even know who's living above that business. So my concern with that, as much as I appreciate the engineering and the architect and the effort they put it in, and honestly, I love the place. Again, as I said, I have a problem. I have to look at the whole area, and I disagree with that totally.
Jen? What are your feelings?
I'm in agreement with this project. It's a very small apartment, and I appreciate Wendy's statement about Airbnbs being close by. I know exactly the one she's speaking of, and if that were to be the case in this one, it's a 1-bedroom apartment. It's very small. It'll have a 2-person occupancy. I don't know if we talk too much about outdoor space for the actual unit, but currently it's going to be owner occupant for the restaurant or for the cheese wheel, I'm sorry. But it could change and it'll still be a small apartment. I think it'll be very, very low impact. And that's my gut feeling on that. I do appreciate everyone's concerns, but I think if it were a multi-unit building or if it were larger, like a 3-bedroom to 5-bedroom property, I think it would be more concerning. But the fact that it is so small, I don't think it'll have a large impact on the property or on the community. And the fact that we have so many people for this project that are in favor for it, I think that kind of speaks for itself. However, I do appreciate all your concerns, but I'm a non-voting member too.
It doesn't matter what you can, whether you can vote or not. Your opinion is important for, I think, for all of us to learn from. You're in the business.
Yeah, I think the fact that it is so small kind of speaks loudly because it's not going to be huge impactful. It's not a 2,000 square foot 3-bedroom apartment. You know, it's just a couple people. I see George's point, but we don't go off of precedences in the zoning board. So, I mean, we can kind of wave that away too.
So how many people you think could live in that apartment, Jennifer?
2.
How?
Maybe 2. Huh? How?
Why?
How?
Right. They have a living room and they have a bedroom and they have a kitchen. I could easily put 4 people in that. I grew up in 1-bedroom apartment with 7 members.
You could. You could.
How many people can live in your garage?
I'm sorry?
How many people can live in your garage?
That's not the point. That's the point that you can say just 2. We cannot say just 2.
I mean, for fire code, it is just 2. I mean, we have to kind of take it for what it is. We can't, I mean, I could fit 100 people in this house right now, but I'm not going to.
I understand.
You know?
I'm just saying, we can't really say just 2. We really can't.
Joel, are you out there?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm definitely in favor of this. I agree with what Jay said about the village, and this is a commercial use and people living. I would say that having a residential use and trying to put commercial in is a different question than allowing an apartment above a commercial building. I'm a strong advocate for property rights, and this isn't a whole building complex. It's it's an apartment above a commercial a store. And to all of the points that George made about people could do this and people could do that. Well, we have rules and we have to trust people to follow those rules. I don't think we can make decisions based on what we can and can't enforce. People know what the rules are. They know what they're supposed to do. They're coming before the board. They could have just built the apartment there and not told anybody. They're coming before the board to get permission. And it certainly is, I believe, within the comprehensive plan. And it's not going to change the historic nature of the Four Corners. So I agree completely. I think we should vote for it.
Thank you. Well, and now you're all on your edge of your seat wanting to hear my opinion. I have really mixed feelings about this, but I share the same concerns that Wendy and George share, but I think that this has been a very well put together project. I think it's architecturally, very appealing. The aesthetics are good. It's a very small apartment, 880 square feet. I have no question doubting the sincerity or the credibility of any of the witnesses that testified before us, Mr. Principe, Mrs. Botello, the realtor, Mr. Hool. I think that Mr. Tights, as an experienced lawyer in the area of zoning, has covered all the bases, and he's established, to my belief, all of the 6 criteria that are part of the special use permit requirements. I'd feel a lot better if we could, it could be owner occupied, because I think that gives the board the level of comfort that we all want to get out of allowing something like this to go forward. But I tend to agree with David and Jennifer and Jay. It was a close call to me, but to see people like a library, which I think is very conservative, and they've been there for longer than anybody. For them to send someone who's the head of the library to give their opinion at a public meeting, it's clear that they have a very good relationship with the Botellos, and there's an area of trust there that I think is really admirable. So I would be in favor of this also. Jennifer and Joel are alternates. So I think it comes down to the regular members to vote on this. And would anyone like to make a motion? Dave, you've touched all the bases already.
You're right. I did touch all the bases. If I make a motion, do I need to repeat all of that, or can we just?
Well, I think you've already said it. And I think there's ample evidence in the record to support all of the 6 criteria that we've just discussed sort of ad nauseum, both in the questions that we've posed to the witnesses and in our discussion and our deliberations. But I would defer to Mr. DaCosta's opinion about whether specifics need to be given at this time.
No, David, based on what you've already testified, you can make a motion to either approve or deny it. You don't need to go through all of it again.
Okay, then I will make a motion that we grant the petition on the grounds of all the items that I've already mentioned in my previous statements.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
I'm in favor.
That would be Lisa Gescheit, David
Jay
Collins,
Jackson.
Jay Jackson. That's it, right? 3 in favor, and those opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed, Wendy Taylor Humphrey and
George.
George Alzabak. Thank you. So it's 3-2. Yes. I don't know. Do we need 4 people to approve a special use permit?
Need 4.
Well, anybody want to change their opinion before we?
I do. I'll change my mind.
All right.
I'm for it.
George, I'm not pressuring you.
No, I'm for it. I mean, I sit here and I'm for it. I express my opinion about it. I feel strongly about it, but the people are great people. I'm not gonna go totally haywire.
Okay.
Let's
well,
go for it.
let's have a-
Congratulations.
again.
I changed my vote.
Okay. Voting in
So-
favor.
So
Myself.
we have David, Lisi, Jay, and George in favor.
Yes. All those opposed?
Me, but you don't need me. You can,
That's
you're
okay.
all good. You're
I
all
love
good.
you,
Wendy, you
I'm
don't want to
sorry.
change your vote?
Go for it.
There's no need to. It's going to be approved.
We're going to be getting you a pair of I Dissent socks. Well,
Good
congratulations.
luck. Good
It's a
luck.
first and good luck.
I'm on the record for it. That's all I care about. Good luck, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank-
much. We will definitely be respectful. We do not take this lightly. Thank you.
Make sure you have my
Congratulations.
when I go in there.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you very
Wendy.
much.
Okay, the next matter that we have on the agenda is the island fuel matter, which, the inland fuel matter, I'm sorry. And I spoke with Mike Marcello, who told me that the applicant is requesting a continuance.
Fuck.
Oh,
Okay, goodbye. Thank you. The applicant is requesting a continuance on this matter, and I have expressed my feeling that this is something that really would require a hybrid hearing so that we could have some people on Zoom if they wanted to be on Zoom, and some people present for an in-person hearing at a larger venue where we could accommodate members of the public that clearly want to be heard about this, and within social distancing and masks and the whole 9 yards. So I don't know, Travis, if you have any update on whether the applicant was willing to assume the cost of the technical accommodations that we would have to make in order to accommodate all the members of the board.
Haven't even thought about it till you just brought it up, and I haven't spoken to Mike about that. I know nothing about it, but I will speak to Mike about it tomorrow morning for sure.
Why don't we continue this
Oh.
by consent, a continuance by agreement to the October calendar, with the idea that it may be another special meeting that we may need to have, because I think this is a matter of public interest and there'll be a large public presence that wants to be heard on it. So with everybody in agreement, shall we continue this to the October meeting?
yes.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Unanimous. Okay.
All in favor? Okay.
The last matter we have, I should ask Sally, do you need a break or anything, or can we go forward on the
No.
last?
Let's keep going.
Okay, the last matter we have is, let me get to our agenda. Is a petition that's been filed by Ken Pacheco on behalf of 2029 Crandall Road, Tiverton. Identification parcel 913-103, requesting a variance to the dimensional regulations table, Appendix A, Article 5, Section 1 of the zoning ordinance. The property is located in R80 residential district. Applicants propose to construct a garage addition to an existing single-family dwelling, and the proposed yard setback of 29 feet does not meet the minimum setback requirement of 35 feet. Is there someone here on behalf of the petitioner?
There's two people on the bottom. It's coming up, Joe and someone else, Kristen.
It's Kristen Payne, she's the homeowner.
Okay, I can't see anybody, so if you raise your hand and can.
Hi.
just-
Here they come.
Jeremy and Kristen came with the owners of the property.
Okay, do you have an attorney representing you?
I don't, just myself.
Mr. Kane, I had, when I was reviewing your application, it indicates that Mr. Pacheco was the applicant, but was not the owner, and there was no affidavit to authorize him, Mr. Pacheco, to act on your behalf.
Right,
So-
yeah, and I think, there was a misunderstanding up until earlier today of him being a part of this meeting and then him not being able to. But I wasn't really relying on his testimony here anyway. I kind of thought going into it that you would just be relying on our testimony and not really his.
Well, you have the burden of proof on this hearing, and I just want to
Right.
make sure that you know what's involved and what kind of testimony you need to present. Whether you
Okay.
want to go with or without an attorney is your choice.
Okay.
But I have to tell you that when I reviewed your application, you didn't address any of the factors that control our decision, and there was no kind of proffer why you need the setback. If you'd like to go forward and address these issues on your own at the hearing, you're certainly entitled to do that. But there are standards that we have to follow that you haven't addressed in your paperwork. And
and I'd like to proceed and address them to the board now.
okay. So you're going to be presenting, so we should put you under oath. Okay?
Yes. Yep.
Sal?
Okay, hold on. Please write, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Could you identify yourself for the record?
Jeremy Kane and my wife Kristen Kane is also here, and again we're the owners of the property.
Is Mrs. Kane going to be a witness too?
No, we'll leave it at myself.
Okay. Why don't you explain to us what you're planning to do and why you need the relief that you've requested?
So the variance will be for a standard 2-car garage on the north side of the house. The north side of the house now is the driveway side of the house. It's where the side entry door is for the house. And the reason for the variance is because the garage really doesn't fit anywhere else on the property as an attached garage. There's limitations in the rear yard, which would be the west, and then also on the south side of the house, there's limitations due to septic. And the limitation in the rear there is the leach field. So it really kind of hindered as to where we can put the garage with it being an attached garage.
Well, I'm not a contractor. I looked at the plans. It looked like a pretty big garage to me. And you can certainly, it's almost like a 3-car garage.
It's a 24-foot wide garage. 24 foot is a standard two-car garage. There are bigger garages. Generally, if a garage is less than 24 feet, it's considered a one-car garage. We did have some drawings, which I don't know if they were included in the variance application of a 19-foot garage, which is what the setback allows us without a variance, is a 19-foot garage, and it's a pretty standard, with an entry door, it's a pretty standard sized one-car garage. And the issue there is the attached garage. Obviously, with it being an attached garage, it's more of a dual purpose. It's not just for a garage. Upstairs there'll be a bonus room, and that's kind of the idea behind it being an attached garage. And we kind of went through the process of detached garage, and because I know if it's a detached, we have pretty much all the space in the world. But the purpose of this garage is not just the garage; it's also the bonus room upstairs. So in order to have a garage on the house that makes sense with the house, and then enough livable space up top, it really has to be a standard two-car garage. A one-car garage on this house, it's a 40-foot wide house with a 19-foot garage attached. I don't want to say it doesn't look right, but it's certainly a small garage for a house this length. And that's kind of a factor too in requesting the additional 6 feet.
Well, you have almost 6.5 acres, or more than 6.5 acres of property.
Yes. Yeah.
Seems that's a pretty big piece of property.
Yeah. And again, that goes back. Yeah. And again, that goes back, and it is. And for a detached garage, we would have all the space in the world. But it really goes back to the dual purpose of the garage, where on the second floor of the garage, we have the livable space for a third bedroom in order to really in order to grow our family. And the idea of this garage, it kind of came, we had talked about additions and the best way to do an addition for a bedroom. And this is kind of like the brainchild of thinking of how to make more livable space in the house, and also getting the garage, if that makes sense. So yeah, we have 6.6 acres. So as you mentioned, a detached garage we could build almost anywhere, and I'd have all the space in the world. But what we're going after is having that garage, and then also utilizing that garage for additional living space. And the only way that I can see to do that is by having that attached garage on the north side.
How long have you lived on the premises?
Say again?
How long have you lived there?
Since 2013, so 7 years. 7 years next month.
And did you build the house?
We did not. The house was built in 2001.
And I know that you're proposing a bedroom upstairs as well as a recreational space.
Yes.
Have you consulted with anyone regarding the need for upgrading your septic system?
Yeah. So when we spoke with the architect, the bedroom that you actually see in the bonus room, it's not actually an additional bedroom. It's actually an extension of an existing bedroom, which will be the same size of the bedroom that's already on the north wall. The reason that is moved into the bonus room is because there's a laundry room in the place of the bedroom on the second floor now. So essentially that bedroom is just getting moved. So the bedroom count will actually stay the same. The only square footage we'll be adding will be in that bonus room.
Are you putting toilet or plumbing in the garage or the bonus room?
No plumbing, no toilet, no.
If anyone has any questions, I'm looking at my list to see if I've covered them already.
Okay, so I have a question. Just for the fact you're asking us for relief, and in order for us we need to find your hardship into it. You could easily put an addition on that house and build a garage somewhere else. So you have a solution without even coming in front of us. You could add an addition to that house, get your
Right.
bedroom extended, put a first floor, whatever you need to do.
Yeah. So the complication there is where we're looking for space on the second floor. There's no easy way to build an addition and get space on the second floor. And I'm afraid if we did do that, we'd be building an addition the same size that we have now, and then also building a garage. So trying to kill two birds with one stone here. We don't need, we're not seeking like additional living space downstairs. The additional living space we're seeking is really only for the second floor. The first floor kind of satisfies us. As to not spend $20,000 putting an addition on the first floor, where we're only seeking it for the second floor. To me, the simplest solution is building a garage, utilizing the garage that I need for my hobbies, and then also being able to use the space above the garage to fulfill the extra square footage that we need just on the second floor for the bedrooms. Because all we're trying to do with the second floor is just with that bonus room is it would be a baby room, and that's where you put like a crib, and that's why you don't see a closet, because we won't really need a closet. It's really just going to be a baby room. So you are right. We could maybe on the south side of the house we could add an addition, and then we'd have plenty of space downstairs, and then that would kind of satisfy the space upstairs, and then the garage would be a separate issue. But to me, that would be spending. I mean, I couldn't even estimate. I'm not a contractor, but tens of thousands of dollars that I wouldn't really intend or need to spend.
On a side note, I like all the Hummers. I like your hobby.
Oh yeah. Well, at least somebody does. My wife, not so much.
I see on the side of your property that there's shrubbery that separates your yard from the next yard. Is that going to have to be removed?
No, no, it won't. That'll all stay. I don't plan on changing the landscape as far as shrubbery goes, really at all. And I think it's important to note too, if you guys have looked at the property, the 24 feet from the house, it really only goes out like halfway to the driveway if you've seen the property. So it's not really an impedance on the obviously it violates the setback limits, which is why we're here, but it really doesn't impede on the on my neighbor's property at all. And so stuff like that, as far as shrubbery and all the existing foliage on the side of the properties, that's not going to be not going to be touched.
My concern, the reason that there's a setback requirements to allow emergency vehicles to get to the back of your property in the
Of course.
event of an emergency.
Of course. Right. Yeah. Of course.
How are they going to get back there if there's a building and trees there?
Well, I still, yeah, and I hate to speculate on what type of emergency would be in the backyard, but to me, 29 feet you'd think would be enough. But again, obviously the 35 feet is there for a reason. But it's not, we're not seeking an additional 10 or 15 feet. It's an additional 6 feet, not even the width of a standard emergency vehicle. So.
Are you prepared to address the criteria that you need to convince us of in order to get this relief?
I sure hope so. We're already halfway into it. So.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm not sure that he has it in front of him. If you would.
Okay.
Oh, the question, no.
Mr. Kane, in order for us to grant you relief, you need to address 6 factors and put on evidence to support the existence of those factors. So before we can grant you the beneficial relief that you're seeking.
Okay.
You understand that?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't you tell us why your proposal meets the standard for us to grant this relief? You don't know what I'm talking about, do you?
No, no.
I didn't think so. I can't give you legal advice, you know?
Right.
You have the burden of proof, but I think
Okay.
you might want to talk to a lawyer and make sure that you have enough evidence in this record that would support us to grant the relief, because quite frankly, I'm not convinced that you've, despite your good intentions, I don't mean to question your integrity in any way.
Can
I
we
don't think
ask,
you're-
can we suggest to him for 1 second? I don't mean to interrupt.
Well,
Can
you
we
are
suggest, I know, can we suggest for him, because he needs help, and I know none of us want to give him legal advice, to ask if he's willing to take, push it into next meeting where he's got an attorney.
Not what I was
and-
about to ask him, George.
Okay, I just don't want to parade him, that's all. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Mr. Kane, we don't want to prejudice your application in any way, and realize that
Okay.
you've gone to considerable expense to do the drawings and everything.
Yeah.
But you need to make sure that there is proof in this record, which, I mean, my informal opinion is you're not there.
Okay.
That you might want to, hire an attorney for a consultation so he can help or she can help you
Okay.
address these issues. I
Okay.
mean, that's something that, I think that it would be in your best interest to do that, but that's your choice.
Yeah. No. If that's what the board's recommending, then I'll certainly do that.
We would need some input from other than you, to address the criteria. So
Okay.
I don't want to hurt your chances of getting it granted, but I don't.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So are you asking for a continuance to our October meeting?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And does anyone have any problem with that?
Not at all.
Not, okay. I think we're all in agreement. It's
Okay.
it's everybody's best interest that you do that.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay?
All right.
Okay,
next
thank
meeting.
you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Sorry, Lisi.
That's all right. I guess now we just have to approve. I think that's it. We've conquered the agenda, other than to talk about approving the minutes. And has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
They're one for the zoning board of review and one for the planning board of appeals. So we have two sets of minutes to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
Okay. Anybody?
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have five.
Aye.
Five, you're there? Okay. Minutes are approved. I just wanted to bring up some general problems. I know that this has been a very confusing month for us to get our stuff together, and the COVID business has really sent me for a loop. I've had some real problems printing out the various PDF files that we've been sent, and quite frankly, I can't afford the ink and I can't afford the paper to keep paying for this. And I have a crappy printer, and every time it's humid, the pages stick together, and it takes me like forever to get them. I know I really would appreciate a hard copy of all of our filings to review when I'm home, because I can't take notes on a computer, and I can't keep printing out the volume of materials that we've been given. So how many people would like to get hard copies so Julie can make them in advance? Jen, David, everybody, or George, let me ask you this. Are you the only one that doesn't want them?
I don't want them.
Okay, Joel, how about you?
Yeah, I'll take them, please.
Okay, so we need six hard copies and one we can continue to do online.
Unless that makes her job harder to scan just for me. If it makes it easier to just print them, I don't want to just scan it just for me.
No, she said she could do that, so
Okay.
that's fine. The other thing, I want to figure out the best way that we can hear people's petitions in a timely manner, and have all the paperwork that we need in advance. And I was pretty frustrated getting a letter from the fire marshal on a very complicated issue that was on our agenda for tonight that we're not addressing. But I don't know how we, stop this piecemeal business of getting additional paperwork through, after we've gotten our hard copies. It's really difficult to keep track of everything and have everything in line so we can review it and
Are they even allowed to? Isn't there a cutoff period?
There's a procedural rule that says we're not supposed to accept it. But I'm trying to accommodate people so we don't have people spending a lot of money to get witnesses and stuff here, and then hear, oh, we couldn't get it to you in time because of COVID. And we're left in the position of not knowing, who's on first. And I find it very disruptive, and it really increases the time that I spend preparing for these hearings, like threefold. And I'm still not sure I have all the paperwork. So how do you guys feel about this?
So can I ask a general question just in regard to the fire department? Doesn't the fire department knows that they need to respond or put it in their package within time? I mean, this is our local authority. Or
I would think so. I haven't spoken to the fire marshal. I just, we got it today, and we're not hearing the petition tonight, so, no harm, no foul, but it's frustrating that we're not getting this stuff in a timely manner. And whether that's COVID related or not, I don't know. Dave?
We have a requirement to have this material a certain time in advance. I don't think that requirement should change. If because of COVID-19, we can't, they don't have enough time to get material to us, then we should simply continue until they can get the material. But I think we need to have all of the material in a timely manner as currently indicated in our rules of procedure.
I know, but this letter, I'm sorry, this letter was not from the petitioner. This is coming from, the petitioner has no idea this letter didn't come to us on time. Or and how do we refuse the fire department letter?
We can't exclude it. So, this is the problem I'm trying to address. I mean, how many times have we all dealt with like really complicated, paper heavy applications? We all read the stuff, we all get ready for the hearing, and then we get a document at the last minute. We're going to have to grant the continuance in order to be fair to ourselves, to the town, to the applicant. And then we got to do it all over again the next month. In
the past, haven't we rejected those documents that come in late?
Yeah, how are we how could we reject a letter from the fire marshal?
Well, then we should continue until everybody's had a chance. We should be continuing until everybody has a chance to look at it.
I agree, but that's the problem that I see here. Like, we don't know that we're not going to have all the documents until we get another document at the last minute. And that means we may have prepared for 3 or 4 hearings, and we're going to have to do it all again the following month. I just don't know how we can, I try to give everybody the heads up to know what they need to prepare for, for a given hearing. And if we think something's going to be continued, I try to let everybody know as soon as I know. But
can I ask?
My question is that came from the planning board. Why didn't the fire department put something in over in the planning board? Doesn't the planning board have a requirement to hear something from the fire department? I mean, he's talking about, when they built the tanks, I'm going to measure, and if they don't measure up right, what are you going to do? Ask the guy to move them after he built them, put them in place? This is crazy. I'm upset because this is the second time the fire marshal has pulled this crap. We had that house down in, I don't remember where, but it was over down on the water, and the guy was trying to cover a trailer. And, he went to the whole expense of having it engineered. And then the fire marshal comes in at the meeting and says, I'm not going to accept that. And the guy goes home empty-handed after he did his due diligence.
So maybe we need to put together, I'm really trying to accommodate everybody's concerns here and streamline everything. Does it make sense for us to have Julie reject an application unless we've got all of these things in advance? If there's fire marshal stuff, we got to get the fire marshal stuff before we'll even docket it on our
But isn't it,
on our agenda.
isn't our argument some of the stuff we don't even know they're coming?
Of course,
Like
we don't know.
Julie doesn't know. Like even if you say to her, okay, we'll put a guideline, it comes to a point she doesn't know it's coming, or it's even not even in our guideline.
But maybe we should say for something like this where we're clearly going to need fire marshal or fire department input, we don't accept something until we get a letter from them, and then we docket it.
What we do with the water authority, we feel the same way when we do Stonebridge or North Tiverton or whatever. We always ask to get a letter from them as anything around the water. So probably we'll ask Julie to add it as an item requirement.
We should add all of the things that we need in advance of the applicant, and the applicant has got to go get these certifications from DEM, from the fire marshal, or wherever the hell it's going to come from, so that we don't, read these things multiple times and have to do it every month. That's an imposition on all of you, and I don't want to see us doing that.
Well, we have a checklist. And I think what we need to do now is to get a copy of the checklist to everybody and have everybody review it and make comments for the next meeting.
I think that's a very good idea. I mean, I think this is where we need to go. We need to have as many constructive things as we can. And I hope that we have the ability to add things to this checklist as a zoning board and have it not come as part of a council requirement or a land use requirement. So I just like to learn how to anticipate the various approvals that we're going to need to put that on the list so Julie doesn't docket cases until they're there. I don't know. How do you all feel about that?
I'm fine with it, but I have a feeling we're still going to get a document.
So the challenge is the way the calendar is, and this is a requirement to do a reading notice, right? So the first thing that ends up having somebody submits a position.
Can you all hear Julie?
No.
Okay, she come up. Have her come up to your camera. Have her come up to your camera.
Just by example, somebody submits a petition by the closing date. For instance, the closing date for the October 7 hearing is this Friday. Okay, so then I have to advertise, because we're advertising 3 weeks in advance. I have to submit the advertisement the following Friday. So we have to have made a decision on whether we're going to accept this petition, yet the closing date for additional materials is not until September 25th. So somebody could still submit stuff after I've already advertised, I've notified abutters, they've incurred, right now, the advertisement alone is costing almost $500 because of all that pandemic and Zoom language that needs to be required in every notice. So from a timing standpoint, to say that, at the beginning when we get it, which is when I'm having to decide and finalize the agenda with you and Mike, we're still getting materials out even after that's happening. And so I don't know from a timeline standpoint how that works. I was not accepting stuff after the final submission. When we had the meeting last month, it was Mike actually, because I called him because I had gotten some materials after the deadline. And he said, we're in a pandemic. We can't not let people give us material.
Oh my God.
So, and it just continued this month, and this month was actually even worse.
It was worse.
So if we want to just say, forget it, and we're going back to at least, if it's not here by this date, it's not in. But when somebody comes to the hearing, this is something that came up. Somebody said, because I reminded them about the submission date, Mike said, well, if somebody comes to the hearing, they can enter something into evidence at that time. So what's the difference?
They can't introduce it into evidence unless we've had it in advance.
Okay.
But maybe we need to have a period of time from the date of their quote final submission before we review it and decide whether it's complete and we're going to advertise it.
I know, but am I understanding her that she's actually advertising this application before she has, if they could keep adding to it? That need to change. We want to advertise it until you hand it to her complete.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think maybe we need additional time between when they submit it and whether we approve it to put it on the agenda and then we advertise it. I mean,
Wendy is too quiet.
Yeah.
You guys have it under control?
You're the attorney,
Those Airbnbs are keeping you up, huh?
Yeah.
I feel that point Julie just made, it to totally defeat everything we're saying. She advertised it, but then she's still waiting for material.
Well, I don't think we should be advertising it until we're sure that that the petition is acceptable to go on our agenda. Like, so we'll ask them to, we need the fire marshal thing. We need the DEM thing
so-
by the.
Travis, is Mike right? That's somebody, I mean, we have rules on that, 7 days. I think Mike is off on that. He's not right?
It's at least 14 days you have to advertise in public.
No, for us, except he's saying they could submit it in evidence. The attorney is Mike, right?
Yeah.
I think that's wrong.
In the procedure for appeal in the ordinance, it says such appeal shall be taken within 30 days as provided by the rules of the board by filing with the zoning officer and with the board a notice of appeal specifying the grounds. So the appeal shall be taken within 30 days. Does that mean it has to be heard within 30 days?
That's not the standard zoning board stuff. Appeals would be the planning board of appeals stuff.
Okay, because this is
Yeah.
under the zoning board.
Yeah, well, that's for the planning board of appeals
Okay.
thing.
Well, special use permits too.
Well,
So
why would be
30
filing an
days.
appeal? There's no appeal from it. We're the first stop.
Right. An application must prior to refer to planning board.
So Travis, is they allowed to put something as an evidence and bypass our rule?
Well,
as we wanted earlier?
We should not allow them to submit documents that have not been provided to the board 14 days in advance of the hearing.
Okay.
But that's really a separate issue from whether we should be advertising petitions before we think that they've been deemed complete.
No, I'm just responding to her saying, Mike saying to her, it doesn't matter. They could bring it to the board and submit it as an evidence.
I mean, they can put on oral evidence of anything, if they don't give us the paperwork in advance. We can't stop that. But I just wonder if we can at least try to control the regulatory input that we're going to need for a lot of these hearings from the fire marshal, from DEM, from all these state and local agencies. I mean, the town shouldn't have to bear the responsibility of re-advertising this stuff over and over again. So.
Yeah, I don't know how you really control that, though. How do you enforce that,
Well, I think we have to enforce it,
No, I mean, like, firefighter doesn't get the letter in time, like, what, you know what I mean?
It's an added incentive to the applicant to get off his ass and get the fire inspector to get the letter to us in time, because
Yeah,
it ain't gonna be heard before then.
True, very true.
Okay. You're on fire, Lacey.
What?
You're on fire.
I'm fired.
No, I said you're on fire. You're going for it.
No, I mean, really, I'm trying to figure out a practical way of doing this where
Honestly-
Julie's job is made clear, and she knows what she needs to do, and we're not, scrambling around checking our email like animals for
I honestly almost missed that email from the fire department. I almost missed the whole thing. I really wasn't even checking.
Well, this isn't our full-time job. We all try to devote the time that it needs, and we have to do that on our own schedules. So,
Does Julie have any recommendations on procedurally how we can make it better?
I don't, because I want to talk to Mike about the interpretation of the zoning ordinance in terms of how many days the applicant has to be heard with it.
I think that Julie, Mike and I need to schedule some kind of meeting to get a handle on this because, quite frankly, I'm not sure I agree with Mike on a lot of stuff. And I'd like to hear his point of view. And if, I could be wrong. It's happened before. But, the whole goal here is to try to streamline the process so we're not spinning our wheels and applicants aren't spending money unnecessarily for things that aren't going to go forward. So do we all agree that's a good goal?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
Anybody else have anything that they want to kick out?
Just have a wonderful night. I call meeting adjourned.
I'll be going
I gotta
to bail my
gotta eat dinner. I haven't had lunch.
I know, I'm starving.
My dinner's been looking at me since 7 o'clock, so I'm leaving.
Oh, turn around and fry one of those fish, George.
No, God knows, please don't come near my face.
Well, thank you, everybody, for this.
Have a great night. We'll call me.
Exchange.
Oh, wait, the
Motion.
meeting was adjourned. Who seconded?
Yeah.
I seconded it.
I did. I seconded. Okay.